Ethan Carter, a successful CEO and dedicated single father, was no stranger to the demanding rhythms of his life. Balancing his corporate empire with raising his daughter had always been a delicate act, but he did it with passion and purpose. Yet, fate had something unexpected in store for him during a routine trip to the Arizona plains. As a part of his occasional solitary retreats to clear his mind, Ethan found himself traveling to a remote area, far away from the hustle of business and the distractions of modern life. The vast desert stretched endlessly before him, and the silence of the place was only interrupted by the occasional gust of wind. It was supposed to be just another quick stop on his journey, a place to pause, reflect, and perhaps feel the peace of solitude. But as Ethan drove down the winding dirt road, something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just a mirage, but as he got closer, he saw it was real. A young boy lying on the dirt, barely conscious and emaciated. Ethan's heart skipped a beat as he realized the child before him was in dire need of help. The boy was thin, his skin pale and cracked from dehydration, and he was barely able to move. The necklace he wore, a simple, handcrafted piece, seemed to be his only possession, and it hung loosely around his neck like a symbol of his past. Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan pulled over and rushed to the child's side. "Hey, kid, can you hear me?" Ethan asked softly, kneeling beside him. The boy didn't respond, his eyes glazed and distant, but he was still breathing. Ethan carefully picked him up and wrapped him in the jacket he was wearing, hoping to provide some comfort. With great effort, he managed to lift the boy into the front seat of his truck and made the decision to get him to safety, as quickly as possible. Ethan wasn't a doctor, but he knew basic first aid, and he understood the importance of getting food and water into the boy as soon as possible. During the drive, the boy never said a word. He didn't cry, didn't make any sound, he just stared at the passing landscape through the window, his small hands clutching the necklace tightly. Ethan tried to offer words of comfort, but the boy's silence left him uncertain of how to proceed. Once they reached a nearby town, Ethan took the boy to a local clinic where the staff immediately recognized the signs of starvation and dehydration. The doctors worked quickly to stabilize him, but the boy remained unresponsive, only muttering a few words in a language Ethan didn't understand. As days went by, the boy showed signs of recovery, but the mysterious aura surrounding him deepened. He never spoke, nor did he ever seem to fully open up about his past, but there was something about him, a quiet intensity that made Ethan feel as though he were on the edge of something much bigger than a simple rescue. The boy, who Ethan had come to call Aki, seemed to watch the world around him with an awareness that far exceeded his years. He didn't ask for much, but every day he clung to that necklace with an almost sacred reverence. Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of duty toward him. As a father, he understood the unconditional love a parent has for a child, and although this boy wasn't his own, Ethan found himself wanting to protect him, perhaps because he saw in him the same vulnerability that could have so easily been his own daughter, had she been in the same situation. Despite the initial shock of finding a child in such a dire state, Ethan felt a growing connection to Aki. It wasn't just about the boy's survival, it was about the bond that was beginning to form between them, a bond that transcended words. And as the days passed and Aki's health slowly improved, Ethan began to realize that this was no ordinary rescue. This was the beginning of a journey that would lead him to places he never expected, into the heart of a story far greater than he had ever imagined. Days turned into weeks, and as the boy, Aki, grew stronger, Ethan began to feel a sense of normalcy return to their home. The silence that had once filled the room now held a quiet comfort, the weight of uncertainty beginning to lift. But just as the calmness settled in, an unexpected event would shatter the stillness. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the desert mountains, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, Ethan sat on his porch, lost in thought. Aki, now able to walk, sat beside him, his eyes still distant, but the faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment in caring for the boy, but there was still so much about him, about his past, that remained a mystery. It was as if a part of Aki's life was locked away, waiting to be unlocked. As the evening quiet settled over the house, a knock on the door interrupted their peaceful moment. Ethan stood, surprised, but with a feeling in his gut that something significant was about to happen. He opened the door to find 3 women standing on the porch. Their presence was commanding yet serene, each one wearing traditional Apache clothing, their faces both familiar and unfamiliar. There was something about them, something ethereal, that caused Ethan's heart to race with anticipation. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice cautious yet polite. The women exchanged glances, and one of them spoke in a soft but steady tone. "We've come for the boy." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The boy. Was it possible that they knew Aki? As the women stepped closer, they began to explain their reason for coming. "We are of the Apache tribe. We are his kin, his people," the oldest of the three women said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "The boy you have saved is no ordinary child. He carries the blood of an ancient lineage, one that has been hidden for generations." Ethan stood there, shocked and confused. "But, I don't understand. I found him alone, starving in the desert. Who is he?" The woman's eyes filled with tears as she spoke, her voice softening. "He is Aki. A descendant of our sacred ancestors, a child of the tribe's most revered bloodline." She paused, looking at Aki, who stood silently behind Ethan, his eyes wide with confusion. "He is the last of our people's great lineage." The realization hit Ethan like a tidal wave, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. Aki wasn't just some lost child. He was a living connection to a forgotten past, the key to an ancient history that was far more significant than he had ever imagined. But there was more to the story, more that the women needed to share. "He was meant to return to us," the second woman explained. "For generations, our people have kept a secret, our true heritage, our connection to the earth, to the spirits of our ancestors. And Aki is the bearer of that secret. But he disappeared years ago, lost to us. No one knew where he went, and no one could find him until now." Ethan felt a sense of awe mixed with disbelief. His simple act of kindness, rescuing a starving child from the desert, had unknowingly set in motion a chain of events that connected him to an ancient, sacred legacy. The quiet life he had built with his daughter was now tangled in a web of history, culture, and spiritual significance he couldn't yet comprehend. "But why now?" Ethan asked, struggling to process the information. "Why has he come back to us?" The third woman, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Because he was meant to. He's the one who will lead us. Aki is the key to restoring the balance that has been lost for centuries." Ethan's mind raced. The weight of the conversation, the gravity of the women's words, and the surreal nature of the situation was overwhelming. Aki wasn't just a child in need of rescue. He was part of something much larger, something that stretched back generations and would influence the future of an entire people. But Ethan wasn't sure if he was ready for the responsibility that had just been thrust upon him. The oldest woman stepped forward and placed a hand on Aki's head, her fingers brushing his hair with a tenderness that spoke of deep love. "You have done something remarkable, Ethan Carter. You've saved our future. But now, we need to honor the past." As the women left, leaving Ethan to process the weight of their revelation, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, forever. Aki's silence seemed more meaningful now, as if he too understood that the quiet was not just a lull, but a sign of something far bigger. Ethan stood on the porch, watching the women disappear into the desert night, a storm of emotions swirling inside him. He had thought he was simply saving a child, but he had unwittingly become a part of something far greater, something ancient, sacred, and utterly beyond his comprehension. The quiet had returned to their home, but now it felt different. It was no longer a silence of peace, but one of anticipation, a silence waiting for the next chapter of their lives to unfold.